Hello everyone, today I would like to present one more video interview about innovative research methodologies. Ludovic Depoortere, the founder of the company Haystack, multisensory consultancy, headquartered in Everleigh, kindly agreed to discuss with me today the importance of sensory insights for development of marketing and product strategies. Ludovic, thank you a lot for your time and the opportunity to have this conversation. Can you please tell a few words and share a little bit of your experience on how companies can start and move on this journey of bringing sensory insights across the whole marketing mix?
Okay, thank you. What I would say here is, indeed, I agree that when you talk about sensory and multisensory, a lot of companies only use product as a pure tactical thing, like, okay, we need to have a good tasting product, or we need a perfume with a great fragrance. However, that is purely tactics. I agree that if you want to be really successful in multisensory marketing, you should really look at the whole marketing mix. And there the keyword is congruency. If you want to be successful and really be strategic in sensory, you have to have a congruent offering all over the marketing mix. Meaning, okay, you can have a good tasting product, but if you bring like a healthy product to the market, you should also bring this same message in a sensory way across the whole marketing mix. Meaning, in every channel you will address to get across, you will have to do something sensorial that is very congruent with this message. Meaning, okay, your packaging should look healthy then, and if you do a kind of a promotion strategy, you should be sure that there is always something sensorial in there that will link to these unique attribute. And that is where most of the companies today still fail, and they put a lot of attention on the product development, but they're doing that all over the like in shop, for instance, they don't activate a real sensory strategy.
And what do you believe, like, where should be a starting point? Because yes, I see that there are a lot of capabilities, there are a lot of approaches and existing level of understanding of doing sensory insights and sensory research on the product development stage. But where do you believe it's important to also put more attention for companies in terms of marketing mix?
Well, what I would say is that what is really important is to know exactly what is your marketing goal, and like to start from a consumer insight. I would say rather than starting to develop a product, start first by looking into, okay, what is the need state? What is the real benefit? What is the emotion we want to trigger with these consumer? And then start developing from there and making sure that, for instance, if you say we want to bring enjoyment to the world, okay, then you can think of, okay, how should my product look like? What should be the shape of my packaging? What should be the taste? What should be the flavor I add to it? What should be the sound of my product when I consume it? But you have to start from the consumer point of view and from the consumer need, rather than from your factory where you say, okay, this is what we can do, and do something sensorial there. No, start from your consumer and develop a sensory strategy based on their needs.
Yeah, and so as long as we develop this product, then you mentioned that we should also bring it in the packaging and into the store. Like, could you share a little bit of ideas of how to make this really holistical, how to bring these sensory insights and this consumer understanding across this different touch point, but from the side of the sensory understanding?
Yeah. We use a model for that. We call that model the Symphony of Senses, meaning that actually every product you bring to the market should be a real symphony, meaning, and a symphony is something that sounds very simple, but is actually very, very difficult to produce. It's like masterwork. So how do you do that? It's like, first you would need to plot in a way, in a map, how how and where you want to play. Like we have a model that we use for that. And it's the typical axis you would have in research. Like you would say it's a need state model, plotting whether you want to develop a product that is really for yourself, or is a product that would connect people to be like together with other people, or it is something you would say it's something that is really for control, or is it something more like to get freedom? And based on these two axes, you get typical need states areas, as you would have recognition, you would have power, you would have conviviality. And it's very important to first have a positioning there, knowing exactly in what area you want to play and what are going to be the underlying drivers of the consumer. What we do then is we would plot functional product attributes. Like you could say, maybe when it's very cold today here in where I am, and then we say it's bitter cold. So probably there is like a link between bitterness and coldness. So it's also important if you know a need state and you say, okay, I want a product that will be used for people that will express that I'm very powerful, very successful. Probably you will need other colors, you would need other taste profile, you would need another shape of the packaging. Then when you are in like happiness, like the typical happiness, the example is Fanta. It's a yellow or orange color. It's a very hybrid shape of the bottle. It's very fun. So this really determines what type of functional product attributes you would need. So what we do is we start from this general plotting, and then we will map functional product attributes to see what is the match of your product with the need state, and we will give very clear directions where to go and how to develop. So what type of colors, what types of shapes, what types of taste profiles do fit this proposition. And then you are sure that both R&D and marketing are working in the same direction and come with a very congruent product all in the end in the market.
Okay, from your experience, because what I saw from my personal experience across different companies, that sensory insights, we are more like stay in their own R&D domain, very focused on the product. Marketers, we don't touch as much the product, so we're saying, okay, we have colleagues in R&D and we have sensory in R&D, so we all know all about it. So we should think only about some communications, packaging, advertising, etc. Do you have like any idea of how it will be possible to connect them together?
Yeah, so that is a struggle that I am in every day. So I am working for both marketing, so CMI and R&D teams. And I totally agree with you that in a lot of cases, even in very big companies, they are not connected. They are not connected as it should be. So the solution to that is only like, okay, we have to uplift the importance of sensory science and the sensory team, and make it from a tactical unit a real strategic unit. It's really key because there are too many products in the market. It's a real struggle in the shelf for big brands to get in there, because they have also private labels and they're also good tasting product. So rather than considering strategically sensory as something, okay, it has to be good enough and marketing will do the rest. I believe it's not true. We should like put sensory at minimum the same level as marketing, and consider it as a real strategic unit. And I've seen lately a lot of successful product introductions where this happened, where we say, okay, we have to do a new product launch, have to build new categories, and we have to start from this sensory, because if it is not superior in the way it tastes, and if we cannot tell the consumers by all the sensory aspects, by the sound of our product, by the smell of it, by the taste of it, by the shape of the packaging, we will not be able to break to the clutter. And that is the whole thing. And I believe that, okay, putting it on the agenda and putting like sensory in the boardroom is the only solution to that.
Okay, what I miss in that, from my experience, there is an amazing product which covers unmet needs, which has an amazing idea behind it, which really kind of goes in this domain which is undiscovered, but then communication is so usual, so undisruptive, that sometimes I really feel that it's not exactly how this new really innovative product can be communicated. Do you have any ideas on how some sensory insights from the marketing standpoint help to deliver this message?
Yeah, that is indeed, it's a big challenge because you, even in the digital world, it's not easy to communicate on senses because still, okay, there is some technology already existing where you could transfer a fragrance through a commercial, but then you need to have like appliances connected to your mobile phone or whatever to like put the fragrance out there. So I think as technology will evolve, it will be easier to have like a digital campaign where some sensory triggering is incorporated. So I'm really looking forward to that age, like where you have the virtual reality, where you have like an inbuilt a sniff center that will be able to reproduce different fragrances. Yeah, the whole thing is the way to do it is not to trigger only one sense and say, okay, this is a great tasting product, but make sure that in your communication you use all the senses. You you appeal to all the senses, and this is something that is very often just simply neglected. Like they talk about, it's a great taste, but also like make sure there is a sound to it. Make sure that even people can imagine how your product will smell. Make sure that people can have like a tactile effect also. Like, okay, so and the more senses you will appeal to, the more the sensory expectation will be, and also like once you can consume the product, then okay, there will be this aha effect, and people will come back to your product and trial it again. So it's working on all the senses rather than only on one, and that is what we call this Symphony of Senses, this multisensory approach. We did analysis on this, and we see that lots of the brands today have like one sense where they stand out, or they have a good visual element, or they have a good fragrance, or they have a good taste, or they have a tactile property that is unique. So I think there's a lot of development possible, and a lot of brand value still to be tapped into if they would work on different and elaborate more on different senses. So this whole idea of multisensory is like, okay, also in your campaign you can use that, and have this example that I always use there, chewing gums, Stimorol, it's international brand. So they're in chewing gums. And what they did once is a very successful campaign on they have a range that is called Senses. So they were like, it's Stimorol Senses. And so they would apply to the fact that they trigger senses. And they had a great campaign, and they did a campaign in the parking lot. And when you enter a parking lot, you always take a ticket, right?
Yeah.
And then many people, I also always do that. The first thing I do is I put that ticket in my mouth because I have to take the wheel and continue. So what they did is they put a publication, an advertisement on the ticket, and actually the ticket was having the fragrance, it was having the smell of the Stimorol Senses chewing gum. And then when you parked your car, there was somebody coming and offering you some chewing gums. But in that way, you could even use a silly thing like a paper ticket to start the sensory journey. And that is the whole thing. We have to be much more creative on using the senses and doing that type of campaigning to get the message across. So this is a good way of using different marketing mix elements in stimulating your senses, which was their baseline.
I believe this is really amazing. It's really kind of it's not only about the taste of your product, but it's also really communication of the taste of your product. And the usual way is only via sampling, but we all know that sampling quite challenging in many cases because of their ROI. And here you're really kind of developing something that you give a chance to have some taste experience already before you have even a sample or a product which is bought. I saw on your site was it was a small video about an insight in the domain of sugar perception. I know that this topic now is very hot in across full food industry, and a lot of work is going on their way. So sensory teams trying to find out the way how to make product less sugary but still attractive in terms of the taste. And you showed a cross-modal insight about the perception of sugar that is connected with the product shape and product color. It was so amazing. It was like one of the top discoveries of the year, definitely. Can you please share a bit of experience on doing such kind of research? How did you approach it to get this insight? What companies can do to end up on that level?
It's indeed a very, very, I would say, popular theme right now. And it's also like a way of taking up responsibility from our side to help doing something good for the world. So we have developed methodologies to help on sugar reduction, salt reduction, and fat reduction. And, you know, taste is acquired behavior. And the whole thing is, if you reduce sugar at a very low level, actually your body will not notice, but if you reduce it with a huge percentage, then you're in trouble because the taste is changing, and your body will react to it and will reject it. So it's all matter of finding different elements to help and support this perception. So reducing it with small steps every year until you reach a certain point. On the other hand, you can also work indeed with the shape or coloring. We know from nature that a darker color usually has a more intense taste. So if you can add a colorant to a product and you make it a little bit darker, the taste perception that it is more sweet will increase. So there are some tricks you can apply. Say, okay, you can do that. The way we test it is we do a lot of implicit testing there, because that's the whole thing about sensory and the difficulty about sensory. If I would ask you, okay, can you rate this product and tell me what is the intensity in sugar, you will get an answer. But it's not so easy to get a reliable answer, because it's simply not so easy for you to notice that and to give me a really predictive result. So that's why we use a lot of implicit testing there, where we use reaction time measurement, like implicit association testing, where you would give a sample to a person, and this sample is manipulated, we change the shape of the product container where it is in, or you change the color of the product itself, and just we will give a lot of items to judge, and we're only looking at the answer to this item, but also at the reaction time, the implicit measure behind. This is what we do. And the other thing is we do behavioral research, where we would just give samples that have a different shape and color, and we would look at repetitive measures. We will look at how much of the product is consumed, how often, and do consumers keep on consuming it, so that you really get predictive data on behavior rather than only looking at what people say about it. And this is how we developed some models with these implicit and behavioral tools to make sure that we can be predictive and tell our clients, okay, if you reduce the sugar or salt or fat content with this amount, we can reassure you that your market share will not be affected by this, because we can model this from this implicit and behavioral testing.
From my experience, you start product testing and then you reach out to the companies who are doing it, but it goes only in direction which you mentioned. So it's a product test. You have n number of products, and we want to see that the consumers perceive this difference or not. So based on the results, we say, okay, it's okay-ish. We really we don't mention the much difference. So we launch this product, but then eventually on the market, we see that it's not perceived as good. That's why I was wondering. So if you have a bit of ideas on how you can manipulate with other variables, it would be really interesting.
Yeah, but I agree with you that there is a limitation to what you can do. You can reduce sugar in small steps, but you can stretch it to a certain point where indeed you will lose on on product performance, because indeed, when you reduce sugar, the texture is affected at a certain moment, and indeed, consumers will at a certain moment say, okay, this is the limit, I don't like it anymore. So the only solution, in my opinion, to that is really do product innovation, and is to start working on a product range, like a line extension, where you move away and say, okay, this is the product as it is, and you will still have consumers that do want that product. But I think the answer there is innovation, and is adding ingredients to it, is adding new food ingredients that have other that will bring, I would say, other taste and sensory attributes in the game, so that you can reposition your brand and like develop more, I would say, healthier alternatives to it, rather than trying to stay within the same product and try to make everything healthy, because this is not something that is achievable. So I would say like look into and innovate with new food ingredients and add them to your product, and do line extension innovation, rather than trying to pull and stretch it too far in your existing portfolio. Yeah.
Have you ever did any kind of studies where you considered the different types of packaging and how different packaging didn't impacted the perception of the fat, sugar, salt?
Yeah, we did that. We never did that in a home use context, because there you have like a lot of extra elements that play a role. But what we do, where we have a lot of experience in, is like indeed, is it this cross-modality? Is looking at, okay, what if you would consume the same product and you would put it in a round shape, compared to like a rectangular shape? Like how does this affect the sugar perception, the sweetness perception of your product? So we do a lot in cross modality, and we can really tell these effects are there, like even the shape of the product itself. Like if you have a chocolate that is more rounded, whether a chocolate that has rectangular shape, the round shape will have a significant more sweetness perception effect compared to the rectangular shape, for instance. So there's a lot you can do, like you can even reduce sugar a bit in the same chocolate, and you make it round. That will compensate for the sweetness perception. So, and this we always do in typical lab condition, because there you can really like make sure that the context is always the same, and that what you measure is reliable in that. We can know that colors you use on the pack, the shape of the container, it all has an effect on the sweetness perception. But obviously there was also a limit to that. You can like win a few percentages, but obviously you cannot like change the whole taste profile with that amount of like variability in the pack.
Okay, probably the last question. You touched it a little bit about the predictability of sensory insights. Probably you can share a little bit of your experience on the question of what can be basically done in order to improve the predictability for the sensory research, different types of them.
Yeah. So I think there is still a lot of work to be done there. Like we always, like in congresses 20 years ago, there was already like 7 out of 10 product introductions fail. I think today it's not better. We have to be like fair and open about this. I don't believe we are doing any better than 20 years ago. Still, I see and I have hope that this big data and connecting data will enable us to be more predictive. Because now you work in sensory domain, in R&D, a lot on your product formula, but actually there is not a lot of data available on how this product formula affected market share, and how your product is consumed in the real world. It's not that this data is connected today yet. So where I see a big opportunity for predictability is to make the data that we have collected connecting with other data sources like market share information, marketing mix information, and also with social media data. So where I would, and it's also what we are investing in at Haystack, is okay, how can we tap social media data and understand how the products are consumed, in what type of conditions, and bring that into the matrix, and in that way make the data set much richer. So using our data, connecting it with our clients' data, and connecting it with social media data. So for instance, for Instagram, you can see where your product is consumed, in what type of context. And if we can use that information, we could build models that are much more predictive than what we have today.
Well, sounds great. Okay, thank you, Lush, for a very interesting conversation. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.